So I'm going to be sharing a few updates from the Africa AI Policy Lab. AI stands for Artificial Intelligence in this case. It's a continental initiative that the Lawyers Hub, with the support of the Patrick McGovern Foundation, launched in 2024 during the 5th edition of the Africa Law and Tech Festival. Now, since its inception, the lab has worked to establish a strong foundation in research, policy innovation, as well as collaboration across multiple sectors and jurisdictions. We focus on these particular 5 key themes. We have AI and democracy, we have AI and privacy, we have AI and judicial systems, we have AI and financial services, we have AI and migration. All these five themes reflect Africa's live realities, the priorities and aspirations for responsible and inclusive AI development across the continent. Now, we have 4 major policy dialogues that we've been able to convene in different jurisdictions. That is Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria, as well as Rwanda, bringing together different diverse stakeholders from government, civil society, organization, the legal sectors, tech, as well as startups. So just to highlight a few milestones of the Policy Lab since inception. One, we were able to create 5 working groups in the key thematic areas that I have highlighted. And each working group has at least 50 members from across Africa. Can you get a round of applause for that? Thank you very much. So in January this year, we held an AI policy conversation on artificial intelligence, privacy, and governance in Tanzania, and also explored the draft strategy that Tanzania has on artificial intelligence. Later in April, during the East Africa Data Conference, we examined the intersection of tech, data, and migration, and analyzed the global and regional visa processes. And as you also got to hear yesterday, we had a session on visa and migration that also plugs into the AI and migration working group that we have. All these working groups are in place to sort of develop a model law for Africa for artificial intelligence. We put out a call for AI policy fellowships. This received up to 493 applications across Africa. So just to give a backstory, the Lawyers Hub has always had policy fellowships from 2020, and we've had at least a cohort of 25 for every session, apart from 2021 that we had 3. Now you can see how these numbers are growing from 3 to 15 to 20, and now we received 493 applications, and we went through all these applications, and these are very great applicants. So we decided that to be as inclusive as possible, we are going to have different cohorts within a year so that we can have like 3 cohorts of the AI policy fellowships and make it as inclusive as possible. In March, we were honored to host an AI policy hackathon that was hosted in Lagos, Nigeria, that aimed to develop a judicial framework for AI. Now, during this particular policy dialogue, we had different groups. We had 10 groups. Each group had at least 10 participants. So this again was a very huge number in turnout. That tells us that people are really interested in artificial intelligence and how it's actually intersecting with the different legal and tech spaces. So out of this, we got 3 policy briefs on judicial frameworks for artificial intelligence. Now, to that extent, we've also had research outputs, or I can say thought leadership outputs, and these are reports. The first report was launched in April during the Africa AI Summit that was held in Kigali. We launched the Africa AI Privacy Report. And then we are also working on AI and adopting AI in Africa's judiciary, leaving no one behind. Also a report output from the Africa AI Policy Lab. So I'm going to introduce two of the working group members from the judicial systems and also AI in privacy, who are going to do a recap summary of these reports. The AI and privacy report is already available on the Lawyers Hub website. And we are going to also have the Adopting AI and Judiciary in Africa's Judiciary report also published in the website. So for our first speaker, who is going to give us the recap on the AI and the AI Judiciary report, I'll just introduce her. So her name is Maureen Gragua, and she's a data architect, legal strategist, and policy advisor who bridges the gap between cutting-edge technology, societal impact. Her unique expertise positions her to the forefront of the evolving of the digital governance and AI integration. She is the chief data architect at the head and the head of the technical unit at the Ethiopian Artificial Intelligence Unit. May I welcome Ms. Maureen to the stage?
Good morning, everyone. So thank you so much, Louisa. As Louisa has stated, I am from Ethiopia and they're part of the AI Judicial Systems Working Group. So as part of this working group, I'll just give you an overview. The working group is composed of legal and tech practitioners, and which is unique from, I think, maybe the previous times that they had it, because now we have software developers like myself and purely lawyers like many of, I think, that are in this room. So I would do an injustice if I don't ask any of the members who are in the judicial systems working group, just stand up wherever you are, because you did such a brilliant work in preparing this report. If you're here, please. Thank you so much. So you'll see that this working group is composed, like Louisa said, of 70 members from across the different regions in Africa, North Africa, Central, South, East, and even the Horn of Africa. So as part of this working group, we focus on 5 thematic areas. We'll look at how the AI can be used in case management and legal research. Also, how we can integrate AI to make access to justice much easier. And there's a Honorable Justice Lena Uller said here, how can we improve judicial decision making using AI, as well as looking into the issues of the ethical concerns that many of you have raised here, as well as issues of bias. And lastly, which we, as we were in the tech developing field, consider necessary evils, the regulatory and legal framework. So you'll realize as well that for the working group, as Luisa has said, we've been involved in various activities, doing hackathons, preparing policy briefs, as well as opinion articles. At the moment, there are also some lawyers who are trying to navigate into the tech software development space. And it's a beautiful thing when we see the crossover, because normally it's us going into the legal space, but now it's beautiful to see how they wanted to use AI in developing these tools, whether it's applications or chatbots that can make your work easier in the practice of law. So next slide. So as part of our long-term strategy, there are hopes to be able to develop an AI judicial systems policy framework, which will help galvanize all the different policies and legal legislation within the African countries, as well as have like AI model law for Africa on AI governance. So hopefully, as we continue, we're hoping to come up with something which later on we can bring towards this forum and see how that goes. Next slide. So as part of the as part of what we were doing. This report is a beautiful report, and I encourage you to read it as soon as you're done here. Just go to the website and read it. So the report has been structured in three parts. We had the study, the key findings, as well as the recommendations. So as when we embarked on this study, it was a 6-month study that involved desk research, as well as having interviews with various legal practitioners, as well as tech enthusiasts across the various sub-regions within Africa. So as you can see, some of the findings that we found within some of 2 case studies that we were doing, we decided to do case studies on Morocco and Kenya because of how their uptake of AI and how they've integrated them into the judicial system. That's why we settled on this. And in the course of our study, we realized that, for instance, in the case of Morocco, there has been tremendous improvement in how they manage their cases. You'll find that they have a library called Adalar, which is this library they use. The lawyers are able to easily access their research materials, as well as the judges are able to access. I think you call them case law and all these other things. Which before they take hours and hours, but now it's minutes because it uses predictive analytics and all that. Then the last we had like now some of the recommendations, which I'll talk about later. So next slide, please. So you find that when you look at AI, what has come out through this particular festival, as well as the forum our study as a whole, is there is tremendous potential for AI to actually improve a lot of processes within the judicial space. For instance, you find I've talked about access to justice. The different subregions in Africa have different accessibility. There are places which are far removed, and it's difficult for them to come to physical court and things like this. So that's where AI comes in. Then you also find that you cannot have a one-size-fits-all solution for all the African countries because of their historical backgrounds. The North Africa you find is very different. If you come to the Horn of Africa, you find there's issues with the fragility and the political systems and things like this. So you have to tailor make different solutions for different countries in different sub-regions. So there's also things to do with the risks we talk about, such as algorithmic bias, privacy concerns, as well as ethics, which I'll delve into much later. So some of the things were found that are key enablers for you to be able to successfully deploy AI within the judicial system. You need good infrastructure, and that costs money. So when you go back to your respective countries, it's something that you should employ the legislature, your parliament or house of federation, whichever it may be, to make budgetary allocations for that. Because then that will factor into the type of policy you come with. Because if you do not have enough money, you could not create good policy. You'll just take something random based on, not random, but not good enough based on the amount of money that you have. Next slide, please. So as I was talking about the different judicial systems in Africa, you'll find in the report we delve much deeper into the various countries. We've segmented it into 5 regions: North Africa, West Africa, East, Central, and South. And with this, we take like a case study of various countries. For instance, in the North, we look at countries like Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, how are they integrating the AI within their judicial system, and how does their previous colonial background influence how that works? Because you'll find, for instance, in the North, they have a mixture of the Sharia law. They have the civil law, for instance, in Morocco, where it's a mix of Napoleonic Code and other things. When you come to East Africa, you find this common law. When you go to the North, you find Sharia and a bit of civil here and there. South, you find also the same thing, a hybrid mix. So we look into all that in this particular report. Next slide. So here we also looked into the role of AI in transforming judicial system. One of the things that we saw from our research was there are common challenges across various countries in various sub-regions. One of them is their case backlogs. And case in point, one of the case study we did for Kenya, we came to realize that in I think last year, they reported they had like a backlog of over 300,000. And you find the same thing also in Uganda, not the same amount of cases, but it's a lot. But at the same time, you find that this is not made any better by the fact that they do not have enough human resources. For instance, in Kenya, you'd find that if they have like a specialized courts. There's environmental land court, and you also have the labor relations court. So in these courts, you'll find ideally a judge is meant to handle 600 cases annually, but they're handling doubles that, 1,304, which is insane amount if you look at it. And in the land court in itself, they handled more than 676. So it tells you there's a disconnect, and at the same time, you find that the number of judges and magistrates is also not commensurate. They have a deficit of 150 judges and over 300 magistrates needed, and that's just Kenya. So how about other places? So we looked at some of the solutions that AI offers to address these issues. You find that case backlogs. How do you deal with it? And we've seen how other countries here like have implemented. I think Kenya, they have jumps. Then they also have them caught. I think it's the CRT, which is a case management system to help get these cases easily, and also help the judges access them and the lawyers and speed them through the whole process. And we also have automated documentation, which is in Morocco, and I think also Tanzania is trying to do the same thing. This lessens the idea of paperwork, where you literally have to have a physical file for you to adjudicate a matter. So we have global precedents, which we looked at the US, China, the UK, and India. In the US, they're using predictive analytics, whereby you're using machine learning and blockchain to do algorithmic assessments to determine, for instance, the probability of someone reoffending. You see? And that's through AI. In China, they have what we call smart court, and this smart court handles small claims, which ideally, it's almost like internet courts when you have like, what do you call it? Commercial claims. Then you don't need to be in a physical court. You just go, everything is handled online. Then in the UK, they also moving into the dispute resolution, where they have a system whereby you can be able to, if you have an arbitration matter, you'll be able to file everything. I think it was there's a vice president of the Law Society of Kenya, Mora, who gives the example about his wife going to ChatGPT. So in the same case, the UK, they have, rather than wait for time and time, you do everything, research there, file the documents, create them, and you're done. So you also have in Estonia what we call a robot judge, which looks at, hears, decides, and writes judgments for claims which are below 7,000. So as well, we find there are challenges that are there. Irrespective of everything we have, the inadequate infrastructure, the digital divide, where there's still some people who cannot have access to technology, and also they may not necessarily understand when we're talking about AI, what do we mean? How do they give their consent to their information being used, and all that? Next slide, please. So some of the revolutionary impacts of AI, we looked into this, and I've briefly touched about them. For instance, in Kenya, where the ELRC, which is the Labor Relations Court, has created a case automation system, and you find they partnered with, I think it's the Strathmore University, to be able to come up with a system where you still file and move your case online, as opposed to having to spend endless times working back to and fro from court. And as the Chief Justice Lena Oller said, they still do the paper, but they're slowly moving towards that. Then we have the Sophie bot from Rwanda, which was developed by the Rwanda Bar Association to help bridge that digital divide and allows the people in remote areas to be able to access this. Same with Nigerian Slow Pavilion. It also adopts a predictive analytics to help in legal research and also in drafting judgments. And Uganda, the ICMIS is purely for case management. So there's various efficiencies that you see when you're integrating the AI into your judicial system. It helps to address some of these challenges that we find in terms of you will not have lost files because there's a digital history of it. So you also find that when you have chatbots like Sophia bot, someone who is in the remote area and they have like their phone, they can be able to look at, for instance, understand the progress of their case and when do they need to be in court, when it's being called again or it's being mentioned or things like this. So there's still risks which I will address later, systemic bias, how do we deal with that, privacy and data. But irrespective of all this, the whole thing is to be able to come up with, if you're coming up with regulation, it has to be able to balance the innovation together with the rights of individuals, the rights of citizens and all that. Next slide. So we also looked at the AI governance and strategic implementation. What are some of the can I call it like legal or institutional framework within Africa that cater towards this? And we have the AU Continental AI Strategy, which is 5 areas and 15 thematic and 15 points, which I encourage you to read about, to go and read. It's very good and it explains everything in detail. And through this, you find the Continental AI Strategy. It still enhances what I've been talking about on how we can integrate the AI in the judiciary, how we can ensure that case management is efficient, how we can ensure that the file organization is good. And to do this, we need good data. One of the things that I've had come from this place is the issue of bias. But bias comes with the data that's available there. And you find the most challenge in Africa, we do not have a lot of data. So when I'm developing or when others like myself are developing, we go with what we have. So garbage in, garbage out. If you give us bad data, who do you blame? So next slide, please. So I've talked about, then we looked, now these are the 2 countries that we looked at in terms of how they have implemented AI in their judicial system. And you find Morocco is one of the advanced. Kenya is only second to it because they're using what we call IBM Watson powered predictive analysis in their case management, also in helping their judges to draft their judgments. So to them, one thing that I've noticed they've done is to still go through it to avoid the issue of where there's no subjectivity, where you look at the case on its merits. So they're doing that, and Kenya touched on this, where they have the case management system, and the Honorable Justice Lenaona also looked into this, which I think for them, when they started, especially with their e-filing system and also being able to do everything virtually, I could be wrong, but I don't think so. It has really helped to streamline some of their processes. So it's a good system, I think. And their vision, they want to have an algorithmic judiciary, which is solely essentially they just want to be able to do everything using AI, from writing judgment, filing, and everything. And then that makes the onus will be on us to ensure that issues like bias and privacy, we are able to work around them. Next slide, please. So ethical considerations, we've talked about this, and it keeps coming, issues of privacy, issues of safety, security, and for instance, in the case where if a judgment has been drafted completely by AI, where does the liability fall? Is it on the judge or is it on the developer? And these are some of the things that the legal framework is not clear on. And there needs to be sort of like a review or a reform to ascertain roles and responsibility to the developers, to the judicial officers, and to the administrators of these tools when they are deployed. So Also, in terms of the algorithmic divides, these have talked about where you have not everyone has access to digital technology, or not everyone actually understands when you're talking about AI, where do they fall in? And this falls on all of us, and especially the lawyers, to be able to create awareness so that when you're getting consent, they understand what they're doing. So I've talked to, next slide, please. So in terms of the policy and regulatory framework, we have the AI, the AU strategy, which emphasizes on harmonizing most of these policies that different countries within the sub-region has, within the African continent. And I think the goal for this is to be able to have something similar to the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act. I know it's a long way to getting there, but it is possible. Then I think a good sort of ground that has been laid by Kenya is through the blueprint for social transformation through access to justice. If we could be able to, not just Kenya, but Rwanda, Ethiopia, and every other country here, sort of have our own of that, then sit down, as the bar presidents say, come up with something uniform, take it back, then we can be closer towards getting to that goal. So some of the things that I think needs to be addressed are, like I talked about, the issue of liability. Where does liability lie? Because if you're the judge, and you write a judgment using AI and it's incorrect, what redress that you who's been adversely affected have? And is it fair to blame the judge, or should they blame the developer who's come up with that? So that is still unclear. And also the idea of what I like to call necessary evil, where the technology has been developed, but it can still go past its initial idea, initial intent. And yeah, next slide, please. So in terms of how we can address, for instance, the issues of where we do not have, like I talked about, there's not enough skill set. It's important to completely build capacity for the judges, for the students who are in the law school, even for us, because if you have this space, for instance, and you only bring lawyers and you do not bring the developers and you draft the regulations, we are always going to find a way to circumvent that. So when you have this space and you train everybody and you say, we're creating the laws, but not to stifle you from innovating, but to ensure that you do not go outside of this bound, because everything good can also be used for nefarious purpose. So trainings are very good, and I know Nigeria does like an AI for justice program. So that's a good thing. I'm sure there's other countries like Rwanda, Kenya, Ghana, who are also doing similar things. So that needs to be a very, very heavy investment for that. So I'm also cognizant of the fact that most countries do not give a substantial allocation for technology or for training. So you find, like, for instance, countries, I'll just give an example. Tanzania partners with the GIZ and their Ministry of Justice just to be able to offset their cost for doing such training. But if the government would look at this as a priority, even in Ethiopia, if we look at it as a priority, then we can be able to do so much more. Next slide. So some of the future trends and opportunities for this, you find that, as I said, there's huge potential to actually use AI to enhance access to justice, to improve your judicial writing, also to curb some of the issues that you're talking about, for instance, privacy and the idea of bias. And you find, like, for instance, in terms of predictive analytics, you can use blockchain, incorporate blockchain, so that you're able to have decisions. Say, for instance, you've created, like, you have your file system and you're creating your decision-making portal where your documents are. You can make it foolproof so that it withstands security or threat attacks. Blockchain will help you in this. And IoT, where you also still build into some of the technology, the chatbots that you're making, and also incorporate augmented reality, mixed reality, all these things that you hear, and you find them in the when you're having digital courts or virtual courts. These are augmented reality. Those are the things. They're not just amorphous stamps. So those are some of the good things about AI. So I would say don't be scared. We are not your enemies. And I hope you will read this report and also help us to help you mitigate these things that you have identified like bias. We can be able to work together so that we are not taking legal fees from yourself, and we also create a harmonious, what do you call it? Sorry, my English escapes me. So, so that we have like, what do you call it? A legal tech bros situation. Thank you so much.